And maybe perhaps what I should do is to explain to you where our data comes from. I grew up in South Africa, and I grew up extremely poor. I grew up in an orphanage in South Africa. And I remember that I was so poor at one stage that my sister and I had to cut a boiled egg in half. And she then had the option to choose the larger side of this boiled egg. So we grew up extremely poor. I went to school, never had shoes, up till I was probably about 10 years old. And I'm not saying this that you must pity me. I grew up really great. It was a great experience. But that has also created a foundation for me. And this is why we have created this company, Bitcoin Trend and Forecast. Now, what has happened is I grew up in this orphanage, and I, at an early age, really discovered that there's one thing powerful that every human being has, and that is your mind. I could sit in the orphanage and I could move myself to Hawaii and put myself on a beach. I could move myself to a different destination just by closing my eyes and thinking about it. And I suddenly realized that my mind is so powerful. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going to explain to you how our algorithm got developed. It's got to do with your mind. Now, at the early stage, I was a really skinny kid at school. And at an early stage, I wanted to go into the military and go and become one of the world's best, special forces soldiers. And I had the opportunity to go into the military in South Africa. I was in the special forces in the parachute battalion, and I became a very well decorated soldier serving under President Nelson Mandela. And what you need to understand is, when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, my brother and I, we used to walk the streets looking on the ground for a cent, a dime, a 5 cent, a 2 cent. Because in those days we had 1 cent and 2 cent. And you could actually buy a lot of stuff with 1 cent and 2 cents. Now, years later, I realized that, wow, what is really amazing is that in my mind, I can still vividly remember that one day we sat on the side of the road, on the sidewalk, and we saw these black Mercedes-Benzes going past us. And years later, I often wondered, why did none of these people that were so rich, whether they're banksters or elite or whatever they are, why did they never stop and just came and helped us? Nobody did. And this is how the world unfortunately works. They're out there to grab your money, but they don't want to support or help the poor or the ones that need the help. Now, as I went through the military, I then left the military. I went to America, studied there, and I finished my master's in occupational health and safety with a medical background as well as an engineering background. That then led me to go and work for Shell, the largest oil and gas companies in the world. And I moved through the ranks rapidly and very, very quickly. So my work then took me to investigate fatalities, near misses, incidents, hazards. Near miss in the oil and gas industry is, for example, where somebody would go up in the mast and work on top of the rig. The mast is the highest point of the oil rig. And when they are on top, working right on top of that mast, they would sometimes leave a spanner there. Now, a worker would come past, the rig would vibrate and move, and that spanner would drop, but miss the person. It misses his head. Now, if it hit him, it could have been a potential of a fatality, because it's big spanners and big tools that you use that fall from a distance, and the velocity can then kill them. So what I then did is took the data from the near miss, the fatality. Now, what you get is you get your cause, your consequence, your barriers, and you get a whole bunch of data of what caused that incident. And I would put that into an algorithm. An algorithm is basically a computerized set of rules. Basically, our software was built in C++ and Python, a combination of both. And I would import that data and then tell this program what is the potential that we can have another fatality if we only use the same processes, policies, procedures, work instructions. And then the system would kick it out and say, this is the result. Now, let me go back. Okay, think about this now. If you want to know where you will be in 5 years from now, listen to what you say to yourself. If you say that in 5 years from now, you're going to be free and out of debt, you're going to be successful, your marriage is going to be good, I'm going to have my car paid off. In 5 years from now, it's going to happen. Now, let's say you come into in 5 years from now, and you come into that place, and you then look back 5 years back, and you look at what did I input in my mind to achieve the results 5 years forward. And you're going to see that you input certain good elements, good working habits, a positive attitude. So what you input in your brain and in your mind and in your soul is what you are going to achieve in 5 years from now. The reason I'm saying this is because our algorithm works exactly the same. What we input in the past in our algorithm will predict the future of, let's say, what will happen in the oil and gas industry. So what I then did is we took the Bitcoin charts from years and years ago. Many people say you can't find the Bitcoin charts from 2008, 9, and 10, but we do have them. We've got the trading history, not necessarily the charts, but the trading history. So what we looked at every single year, and we identified that there are approximately 600 points on every single Bitcoin trading chart for the Bitcoin year. Now remember, the Bitcoin year does not work in a calendar year. The Bitcoin year works from 1 April till 31 March the next year. That is how the Bitcoin year works. Now, what we have done is we have identified on, let's say, the first year of charts, and we call them A1, we have identified 600 points where the market would go up, break out upwards, and then break out downwards. So if the market moves up 1.5%, that's a breakout upwards. If it moves down 1.5% or more down, it's another unit. So we identified 600 units on every single chart going back, way back, and we call them A1 till A600 for the first year. The second year is B1 till B600, the third year C1 and C600. You get my point. So we put all that down on a graphical interface in an Excel format and imported that data into our algorithm and said to the algorithm, based on the past historical data, that's one part, what will be the future price prediction of Bitcoin? So it kicks us out the graphs, and we can manipulate that, and we can see where Bitcoin is going to go. Everything in the world works with patterns. Now, apart from only the patterns that we work out, we also take into account sentiment. We take into account behavioral assessment. Market sentiment is probably one of the biggest indicators at the moment. Now, when we develop market sentiment, we never realized that we are going to get a negative sentiment, and we only stopped at 0, with 15 being the highest point. Now, if you look at this week, for example, the sentiment indicator went negative. Now, we can't see negative because we can only see 0, but it just tells you that the world is now completely and utterly on the lowest point in regards to sentiment. People are selling out of the market, they're moving out of Bitcoin, they're moving out of cryptocurrencies, and they've just given up. And that is also why you would find that people are very aggressive on social media. And that, fortunately, is actually the data that we use as well. We go and grab that data and we see how angry people are. Now, you're going to see now, guys, that in the next 2 weeks, that sentiment is going to change into positive. We see that now. As of this morning, actually, when I woke up early, I had a look at the sentiment indicator. We grabbed that from social media, and you don't have to have crawlers to do it. You can literally go to Google. Google has now got a very good sentiment indicator, and you can just use that as well. But we use sophisticated methods to bring data in that we analyze in conjunction with our algorithm. So in the next week or two, you're going to see the sentiment changes. People will start getting happy. And you see that overnight on Twitter, you see it on Facebook, you see it on all social media. You also see on Instagram. On Instagram, for example, what we do, we track Instagram. We, since last night, the last 24 hours, there's been 23,000 pictures being posted on Instagram related to Bitcoin. It's unbelievable. And these are all positive pictures, whether it's charts or people just making funny memes about Bitcoin and cryptos. And that for us is a big sign that the market now is starting to turn upwards. So our data the way that we develop our algorithm and our charts is not necessarily based just on Elliott wave. As a matter of fact, if you look at the last 90 days, every single charting analyst scratched their head because Elliott wave theory didn't work and still does not work. it's really remarkable to come to that point where you say that Elliott wave doesn't work. So let's get into, since you know there's a little bit of a history now, okay, let me just go a little bit further. Now, when I started working in the oil and gas industry years ago, I started using the trading charts in Bitcoin for myself. What happened is I became financially free by using my algorithm data. I would only buy low and sell high. And my job is to identify when is the market on the lowest and then get into the market, and when is the market on the highest and get out in the market. Like, for example, now, what we said is we are calling for the world low in Bitcoin. We believe that this box here, if Bitcoin drops into that box, is the lowest point in the market forever. And we believe that the market then now will start going upwards. The way that we get to that is through sentiment indicators, behavioral assessments. The angry indicator is starting to turn a lot more positive. And this only happened in the last probably 24 to 30 hours. So we see a lot of positivity. And you also see now that cryptocurrencies and altcoins are now starting to turn green. And like, for example, OX, ZRX, you can see that is now moving along really well. Our goal here is to help the little guy. Because I tell you what, if you do not know where the market is going to go, you're going to get slaughtered. And I really urge you guys to really take these reports as a guideline, because we're doing the best that we can. We won't have every single thing 100%. This year we made about 360 calls. 8 of them were complete failed calls. Now, as a matter of fact, and we can go into that, you know, the market changed on 10 April 2018. We were pretty famous for a failed call on 10 April, where we said in 10 April the market is going to break upwards and just shoot up. And Bitcoin would have at that point reached $20,000. But exactly at that time, and you can go back into the charts, I did show that on last week's webinar, where you can go to 10 April and see that the market exactly at UTC -4, 0.0 hours, broke downwards. That was the start of manipulation in the world Bitcoin markets. And it still hasn't stopped. But the good news is it's coming to an end. Now, let's just quickly have a look at today's Bitcoin report. 1 November 2018 Bitcoin update, report number 73. Now, at the time of writing, we see that we have Bitstamp, which is 6362, and then we have Bitfinex, which is 6445. Now, Bitcoin dipped as low as 6199. Now, I'm not going to go through all that now, but you can see in the chart here that we're now calling for the world low in Bitcoin. And you'll see that the market there is going to start dipping down over the weekend. It may touch that purple line, go sideways, break out, go sideways again, and then break upwards into around about 30 November. Now, keep in mind that this is the Bitfinex chart, which shows this big spike, which was induced by basically Bitfinex and USDT, all the FUD around that. There's a lot of fake news about USDT. Many companies and many individuals all over YouTube and all over the world have called for the USDT to completely collapse, and it still hasn't done that in years and years, and it will never, guys. USDT is pretty safe. If I own USDT, I will also not allow anybody to come and audit me, because once they get audited, it gives that company that comes and audit them access to other data. And I think they just shouldn't do it. But whether you use USDT, only use that for a short term. Don't use it for long-term parking money. Now, on the bottom here, you'll see this is Bitstamp. Bitstamp figures are a little bit different than Bitfinex. Bitfinex has got a higher price. Once these prices, you can see there, let me just make the screen bigger. You can see there we've got 6453, and on the bottom here we've got 6336. Once the Bitcoin price merges of Bitfinex comes a little bit lower to 336. It's going to move sideways, and right here at this point, they will probably get very close to each other, and you could have a $40 spread between them. So that's one of the indicators that we're also going to look at before the market breaks out upwards. And it's not going to break upwards like massively. You can see that we expected to go to about that level there, sideways, and then upwards into the end of November. But from there onwards, it's going to break upwards. And I'm going to go into the charts shortly and show you what we see there to give you a big view picture. Now, the coins that we suggest, the first coins that will probably move really fast and make first gains could be ZRX, BAT, Digibyte, ADX, PPT, Veritasium, Ethereum, and Ethereum Classic. And don't disregard Zcash. Zcash is one of the coins that the financial institutions are now starting to buy like crazy. And then what we do, there's another chart here for Ethereum. We see Ethereum following the exact path of Bitcoin. Going to drop as well, maybe only towards that pink line there, go upwards, break out a little bit, could be a little bit higher than this, maybe till there, and then go upwards. And also, you know, one of the things, and I'm going to go into the charts shortly for you, we don't need to look at is Ethereum $200 or $207 or $203. Get a ballpark figure for these things, because remember, we are trading the trend. Many people ask me, Ethereum is now $199, should I buy it? And then another guy will tell me or ask me, Ethereum is now $210, should I buy it? It doesn't matter in that spread. If you buy Ethereum at $199 or $220, it's going to go to $1,000 and beyond in this next run. And then that little small margin doesn't really matter. So if we can just have that perspective as well. Our reports will not tell you buy at $199 or buy at $203, because we do trend analysis, a trend trading. Look at the pattern. The pattern is down, the pattern is then up sideways, and then a breakout here. And that breakout there coincides with the world stock markets. Now let me go down to this chart here, which is the world stock markets. From our first initial call on 5 December 2017 and 10 February and then March 2018, that the world stock markets are in a declining pattern. We see some downside incoming in potential for the Dow to reach 21,684. And that's the figure that we had from the beginning of the year. We see that decline happening. Now, very interesting. This is the Dow Jones. We're going to see, well, the market went up to that high point, and it didn't go higher than that point there. It started dropping here into point A. We now believe that it's going to go upwards to the 14th of November up to point B, which is, I can't see the figure there, but around about 26,000 for the Dow. And then at that point, very interesting, Bitcoin diverges from the world stock markets. This is the date. Now, we can be a day or 2 or 3 out, but this, in that region of this date of 14 November, very soon in the next few days, Bitcoin is going to go sideways and upwards, and the world stock markets are going to decline. It could happen earlier or a few days later. And then here, on the 29th of November, is Bitcoin breaks free and the elite loses control. The reason the elite is going to lose control is because, as you guys know, I'm not sure for those guys who are not aware of this, but the American government, unfortunately, is the biggest launderer of money in the entire world. JP Morgan is the second biggest one, because those guys can launder money anywhere in the world and they never get caught. And if they get caught, they get a $5 million fine, which happened with JP Morgan. If you and I do that, only launder 10,000 or 20,000, you'll go to jail forever, and they'll throw the key away. Now, what happens with the American government is that for the last 3 to 4 years, actually longer, but our data goes back about 3 to 4 years, we find, and especially now in last week, the American government moved $30 billion in money laundering, in my opinion, to the Swiss government. What the Swiss government has been doing with that money is to move it into little companies, which is company XYZ that owns this trust, and that trust owns these companies. They have even got companies in New Zealand that the Swiss government has registered. And what they do, their job is to buy the FANG stocks, or like Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Alphabet, Apple. They buy these stocks up, and even Microsoft, to prop the market up of the world stock markets. Instead, it's kind of like stopping the market from dropping, the Dow Jones from dropping, because if it drops further, there's going to be hell on earth with the stock market just dropping worse than 2008. So they use the Swiss government, and guys, don't open your eyes a little bit and just look at what we are saying here, because we are researching this and it's the truth. Now, the Swiss government comes and buys up the stock and it goes up, which they didn't this week. But what we are finding now on the last 2 days, 2 trading days, they are starting to buy these stocks with spending billions of dollars, and it's not working. They can't prop it up anymore. And we believe that we have come to a point now where they are going to lose control, and that date is around about 26, 27, 28, 29 November. And that is also the date where we're going to have a spike upwards into December, and we will never ever come back to these levels here in Bitcoin ever. So if you want to buy altcoins, cryptocurrencies, today, this weekend is going to be one of the best times to buy cryptos and altcoins. Keep in mind, we've still got about 20 days to go before we see that uptrend. We could see this spike upwards, not a spike, but rather a uptrend moving upwards by around about 15 to 14 November as per that date, because that is there at 14 November. A few days later, we get an uptrend, and then in December, we break out. So what I'm presenting to you is a pattern. This is just a pattern. Now, if you look at last week's report, we said that we followed a bit of a flag, a bullish pattern. We expected the market to break out there, which it didn't go that high. It came down a little bit lower, but then it went sideways and we had that drop. So if you look at this chart there, you can see there is that drop. So it went sideways, it dropped. So see that drop there? So there is that drop there. Now, we expected the market to go a little bit lower here, but it didn't do that, and it only came to about, it nearly touched this, missed it by about $30 for the green entry zone. And the reason for that is, let's quickly have a look at it, why it actually touched that and then moved upwards. So we are now approximately there. So we still look at that uptrend. We're still going to have a little bit of a drop here, and then the uptrend going up on that level. The reason the market only stopped there is the over-the-counter money, and we will get into the discussion shortly once we open here for discussions here. We have discovered that over-the-counter money is nothing different than theft. It's what the royals and the elites and the banksters do to buy under the table cryptos, Bitcoin and altcoins without you and me knowing. So a financial institution would go to, like, for example, an exchange like Coinbase and say, I want to buy $100 million worth of cryptos. 50% Bitcoin, the rest altcoins, but I want to make a deal with you. I'm not going to pay you that fee. I'm only going to pay you 0.025%. So out of the $100 million, here's your little fee, but you give that to me. So the exchange is more than happy to do it. They take a little fee, and that's why you'll see that these exchanges are making billions of dollars of profit from you and me, as well as from the over-the-counter money. Now, what happens is they give the $100 million to the exchange, like, for example, Coinbase, but it does not reflect in the overall coin market cap. We did an investigation this week on every single major Bitcoin wallet that we know of. And there's a sequence that we can run in our software that we can see what is the value of certain wallets. And to a certain extent, most of this work that I'm giving you now is subjective. I can't really say with certainty that it's $200 billion, but from our research, we make the assumption if a certain percentage of big cryptos or wallets bought this amount of money, we can make the assumption with the rest of the wallets that are there, on average, they would contain a certain percentage, and therefore you come out and say that from the beginning of the year till today, there has been $200 billion worth of over-the-counter money or under-the-table buying going on, and it does not reflect in the coin market cap. If that money did reflect in coin market cap, we would have been today at over $14,000 in Bitcoin. And you can imagine what that would have done to different altcoins like ZRX, XLM, Digibyte. It would have been it would have exploded. Now, this is also the reason why in the last 90 days that no trading analyst who uses Elliott Wave has been correct. They would have been correct if there were no manipulation going on in the market and when OTC would have been legally bought and sold. Now, there are a few people that says that 200 billion is way off. Okay, let's half it then and say 100 billion. But I can really tell you guys now that a few weeks ago, a very good friend of mine, Prasad Hara, who manages billions of dollars worth of cryptos, came and visited us here in the Gold Coast here in Brisbane in Australia. And we had lengthy discussions, and I saw it for myself, the amount of money that they invest in cryptos and other altcoins. And they buy it over the counter, OTC money. He is one little investor in the big pool where there are trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars moving into cryptos. My estimation is that the 200 billion is very, very low. But conservatively, I tell you now, the $200 billion, that is more or less what we look at. So, yeah, so that is basically, if there's anybody here who wants to ask questions, please feel free. And I'm just going to share my other screen quickly because I want to show you something else as well.
This is Bill in the US. Who do you think, I know there's 5 big wallets that in the last couple of months have really been purchasing heavy OTC. Do you have any idea who those are? Are they institutional investors? Are they governments? Any idea?
Now, with the larger wallets, it's literally impossible to find out who that wallet belongs to. You can actually go and do a search on the internet. There's now software that will actually, that you can run, and it will bring up the major 10 wallets, how much they own, the 100 wallets, 2,000 wallets. And most of those big wallets, this is what we also need to understand. There's one, I can't remember how much coins it has, but that specific wallet belongs to Binance. And many of these big, just remember that many of the big wallets will belong to exchanges because they need to buy and sell Bitcoin and have the value of that in there and have some, a bit of a cushion there. But we have eliminated those wallets from the $200 billion that we suspect could belong to exchanges. But you will literally never know who a wallet belongs to. Unless, Bill, I tell you, here is my wallet address, send me money, and you know it was me, and then you can clarify that and find it. There's still a lot of privacy around it, and unfortunately for us, we can probably allocate about 1 to 2% of those wallets belonging to certain entities. But there are 17 wallets that we have been following which keep dumping Bitcoin. Bill, it's really amazing to see. As soon as the price of Bitcoin goes up, these wallets would start dumping 5 Bitcoins at a lower price, just to bring the price of Bitcoin down. Now, for anybody to go and sell Bitcoin at a lower price than what the market is presenting at the moment, you must have an insider inside, for example, Bitfinex or Coinbase or any of the exchanges that they are using, because they have to go manually in and change that figure to sell it deliberately at that low price. And as soon as it gets bought, it brings the entire value down. And that's how they keep a cap on trading Bitcoin, like you can see now here, in a range for about 90 days. You know, it went up there, but then down, but in a range of about $6,500. And remember, it's very interesting actually, Bill, that a long time ago, we said in one of our reports that, and this was probably around about here, at about June, yeah, it was around about there, it was told to us from financial institutions that they are going to cap and keep Bitcoin at about $6,500. And we made the statement and we said that Bitcoin will never ever go below 6.5, that range, 6.3, 6.5, 6.6. And look what they've done. They've been keeping it in that range. But now, at this point here, we expect that they are going to lose control. And this is one of the reasons that we also do this webinar, so that we can explain to you from my perspective what I see. Now remember guys, this is only from my perspective. We could be wrong, but it's better that I give you this data on a regular basis from what I see and what's happening in the market, then you can go and do your own research. Hi there, how are you doing? Jump on the call. we need to, this is just my wife and she just came in here. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
This is Michael from California. You had sold some of your portfolio and I think bought some back. And do you intend to put the latest buys and sells up in the back office?
Yes, absolutely we will. My apologies, we haven't kept it really up to date. But one of the reasons we haven't kept it up to date is because, it wasn't really included in the paid content or anything like that. But I promise you, we're not going to charge anything for that. We're going to keep it up there. And people that have got access to that will see that forever. And we're going to make it a lot better. So we're just working on a way that we can have an Excel spreadsheet that you will be able to go and download on a regular basis. And you can click a button and just say refresh, and it will show you where the latest percentage gains are. Now, just to give you a history on that, we started buying at about the 23rd of July was when we, there. We opened, exactly at that point there, which was 24 July. Now remember, we ran our first model portfolio from the beginning of the year. This doesn't go back, just a little bit slow bandwidth here. But from the beginning of the year till the 24th of July, we made a 518% gain on our model portfolio. Now, I don't mean to brag or, we want to stay humble and keep our feet on the ground. So it's not that I'm trying to brag. Please just understand me right. But we managed to literally buy here on the low and sell on the high. And we made some mistakes as well there where we lost money as well. So we're not 100% correct. But from the beginning of the year till that date here, 24 July, and you guys saw that we sold our portfolio, which made 518% gains. And then we said that we're now going to trade the new portfolio live. Now look at that downtrend from there, where we started, till there. We still managed in this downtrend to make a 32% gain. So again, so we still managed to make that 32% gain. While the market went down, we made some gains here, going up there, it dropped, and we made some gains in between here. And we've taken profit where we could take profit. So the first thing, and we'll get that updated, yes, just to answer your question and show that. So even in the down market there, what I'm trying to say is that we made a little bit of a profit, which is not really much. You could have made 23% profit just by holding Apple or trading Google stocks. We really want to see 200, 300, 400% gains. That's what we want to see. But as you can see, the market came all the way down here. Now what's going to happen, if you look at that, is that we see upwards momentum now. And does that answer your question with the model portfolio? So
yes, yeah, that you'll be showing what you've bought and sold recently.
Yes, that's correct. And let me just see if I can actually bring that model portfolio up now. And I'll just quickly show you guys how we're going to do that. Now, when you open this Excel spreadsheet, these are the coins that we have. Some BTC, OMG, Litecoin, Ethereum, NEO. And you can see that we are on 3.42% gain. Now, what you do when you go to this, now this is not saved. I'm going to go to refresh. And this will actually refresh all these API connections here on the bottom. They connected to CoinMarketCap. Now there you can see it goes up to 11, 17%. So trading this live now, we are now on 16.49% gains. And remember, you've got access to this Excel spreadsheet. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it's actually in the back office. If you go in the back office, you can actually go down to the bottom and download that. Yeah, so you can see that is now currently at about 16.49. But as I say, we will update the Excel spreadsheet on the model portfolio page. My apologies, we just haven't done that yet. Now let me just go back to I'm just going to go back to that screen.
Marius, I have a basic question. It's Morel here. When you say back office, do I click on my account to go to my back office? Is that what you call back office?
Yes. Now, I'll quickly show you what to do. Can you see my screen now? Just tell me when you can see the circles of the mouse.
You can see the chart. We see a crosshair.
And
yeah, now we see circle.
Okay, cool. So it's a little bit low, just downloading. Okay, so when you go to the back office, you go to the website here. The back office is this, where it says My Account. And can you guys see the bear?
Yep.
When you go here, this is where the reports are. And that's the model portfolio that we will update. But when you go right down to the bottom here, you'll see there's a file there, which is the Excel spreadsheet. So you can literally download the file there.
Okay.
So the back office, what we mean is you go to My Account, and then when you click on that, you'll have a pop-up block, and there will be certain pages that you can access. And these are the reports, and then obviously you can go to archive reports here on the bottom as well. Okay, so let's get into, I'm quickly going to show you something, and what I want to show you guys is what we see in our algorithm for the next 4 years. Because when you guys have a large view, a big view picture, it takes the fear away. And this is one of the things that we want to do with these webinars as well. And I'm going to give you confidential information, and please don't post things like this over the internet. As a matter of fact, we had 2 trading analysts who went and bought the webinar to get our data, and we unfortunately had to return their money to them because we don't want them on here. Because many people are now starting to use our work, and I'm really getting annoyed about it, you know, because some of these companies are charging like $1,000 a year, and they use our work, and it's just not right, you know. I don't mind if they share the work, but then don't charge for it then, you know.
Yeah, it's taking the mic.
And then those same people will actually go on. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Let me quickly explain where the market is going to go. Yeah, okay, ask you a question, go ahead.
Do you think this low is definitely going to come in the next 10 days, like down to the 6234 on Bitstamp, not Bitfinex? Because the arbitrage is really frustrating for me, because I'm not intending to go on Bitfinex whatsoever. So I'm just a little guy, yeah. But I'm looking out for that area of 234, 250 now to go back in. And do you think that's going to happen? Do you think that's going to happen in the next 5 days?
Yeah, the low, in our opinion, happens between these 2 green lines there, which is between the 3 and 5 November. That is the low. Now, you may find that it only comes down and touches that little pink line there. But look at what happened here where it dropped below the pink line there. What we said in the report, we say even if markets turn down slightly further, it will only be for approximately 12 hours and then return upwards. As a matter of fact, we think about 4 hours. So if it comes down, I'm going to show you what we see could potentially happen. It could potentially come down like this, and because of the momentum going down, it could potentially just go like this and quickly and back up again, and then it would follow that pattern. Okay, so that could potentially happen, and it shows in the algorithm a little bit of a drop. Now, let's take that out for the equation, and let's say what I said in the report is I think because of the market that is so strong with the OTC money, the general public is now understanding that we have been crooked and cheated and lied to. Now what happens is they retaliate and they start buying cryptos, and they realize that the market is going to go up. It's kind of like, I better buy now, otherwise I'm going to miss out because we've been cheated and lied to. And this is where the strength in the market is coming back. It's called the sentiment indicator, the behavioral assessment of people. So we don't believe that it could, if it drops, it may drop to that point there, or it may just drop here, go sideways, and then literally come to this point. It's going to do something like that, you know, and then
So
just jump up and then go sideways.
So you're saying there is a small chance it could drop to the 6,000 marker very shortly, for a very
Yes.
short period of time, and then just bounce back up. Yeah, I've not got a problem with that. I'm quite happy for it to drop a little bit low. I still expected it to go to the 5.7, to be honest, but you know, I found it ever so frustrating last weekend when I was waiting for that little bounce up to sell out, and I just couldn't quite get it, and just didn't happen, and it went the other way, and frustrating. And the arbitrage is a right pain because there's a lot of people, I think, making money out between one exchange and the other.
Yeah,
Really
I get your point, and especially for you guys in the UK, that arbitrage is completely, yes, it destroys this, you guys. Now, just look at what is potentially going to happen here at that point. Look at what happened here, and I'm just going to highlight that quickly so that you can see what I mean. Now, remember, Bitcoin is patterns. The patterns always repeats itself. Now, look at that pattern there. It came down to the top there, and it started going down sideways, and it comes to a point, and then it just capitulates and goes downwards. We expect something similar here to happen. It's going to go sideways, drop a little bit, and then we can have that long drop there. That always happens right at the end of a kind of like a, you can actually argue and say this is a bullish wedge, but you know, these things, the Elliott wave theory doesn't work anymore. So we could see that it then drops exactly like it did here, and then drops into that block, and see that little stab there, that little line there where it comes back up quickly again. So your last buying opportunities, in our opinion, is going to come in here. We do not see a touch of the 5.7 or even 5.9 anymore. The reason is there's too much strength in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies at the moment. I think we saw $14 billion flow in, didn't we? If you go to CoinMarketCap, I'll just load that up quickly and see if that comes in. I think 14 billion in the last 24 to 48 hours. So it shows you the sentiment has changed. Now, whether you buy Bitcoin there, whether you buy Bitcoin at the low, it's a very small margin. Yes, go ahead with your question there.
Marius, it's Bill again. So you believe that the turnaround in the crypto market is going to be strictly led by market sentiment, and that the money will be coming from out of the stock market or out of the bond market, or?
Bill, no, not just sentiment. It will be foolish to say that the market is only built on sentiment. There are 15 indicators that all will play a role. One of them will be the media that are going to turn positive towards cryptocurrencies, and you can see that happening now. Now, a major news station is one of our premium members. They've actually got a corporate account. We are working with them to we actually validate some of their data for them with regard to news. Like, for example, just a few days ago or weeks ago, the Bitfinex news and the USDT news, that was all fake. We know it by now because it was presented by 3 major news stations at exactly the same time, same script. It was there to keep the market low. So there's 15 indicators we need to look at. First of all, the media. The media plays a big, big, big role. This is why the guy of BlackRock came out yesterday, the CEO,
Yeah.
and he made that stupid comment that says that Bitcoin is not legit. They make these things. Now think about this. He doesn't say anything for a year, and suddenly he comes out and says that. Now,
Larry Fink came out yesterday.
yeah, I mean, it's terrible. So they use the media, but the media now is going to start turning positive. That's one indicator. Another indicator is perhaps sentiment. Sentiment is a lag factor. It's not a pre-run factor. It's what we call in the oil and gas. It's not a immediate factor that caused that consequence. Sentiment is a result of what happened in the media. So that is not a pushing factor. There are other pushing factors like I think the media will control a lot of it. So you imagine if somebody big comes out now, let's say like JP Morgan comes out and says, listen.
Last week, Jamie Dimon was out again talking negatively about cryptos.
Yes, and that's correct. And this is what they try to do. They keep trying to suppress the market. Now, Jamie Dimon. Yeah, Jamie Dimon and his deceitful crew, they are buying Bitcoin and cryptos like crazy. Yes, go ahead, Bill.
He's a market maker, and he's manipulating the market, and he's not in jail.
Yeah, that is one of the most amazing things that I just don't understand.
In jail big time. They all should be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I have a question.
It's been going on for years. It's a thing, isn't it? Like the silver markets and the gold markets.
Look, what we see in the market happening, let me quickly show you here. And I'm going to show you the big picture. We see the market breaking out here at the end. Now, whether you buy Bitcoin at 6349 or 6365, it's really immaterial. Whether you buy, you know, there's like a 1.57% spread in price now. We just don't see it turning down. Now, when we break out exactly at that point and we break upwards, that is when you know that the 5,700 Bitcoin will not arrive, because it will break upwards. If it breaks downwards, we have a big problem. But we don't see that. 99% of the chance we say it's going to break upwards. We're going to get to this point here, which is around about 27, 28, 29 November, and the market is going to break upwards further, and then into December it's going to break upwards with a big drop in December. Now, what I want to show you quickly is, and in one webinar, we did this. And I'm not going to redo all this, but I want you to understand what is happening here. If you look at, for example, let's go way back to this. And I'm going to show you the pattern that keeps repeating itself. And you can see on the screen there that here in 2014, Bitcoin made a 1,766% gain. Okay? Now let's have a look a little bit further. If we take this low, if we take that low here, and let me just put that line in so you can see that. Let's say we say that is the average where Bitcoin dropped there and then shot up. That is 1,028% that it did in 2017. And if you actually go through some of these, you'll see that there's huge gains here as well. But I'm just jumping forward to 2017. Now let's say if we go up 1,000% again, and we right down here at the bottom, we move that where we are now, and we just go up in 2019. There we go, 1,000, and let's make it 1,000% more or less. That is a minimum level of, in 2019, of $75,000. And then obviously you can take that further. So we expect Bitcoin to go up in the year 2018 to this level of about $35,000 to $40,000. It's going to drop the next year, go up again to our opinion about $70,000 to $80,000. And then what happens here in 2020 is that it drops. It's a little bit of a different play, but it drops and then it goes up and shoots up. In your third year, you're going to see a parabolic move that nobody has ever seen in the entire world up to in this third year in 2020. And then in 21, we're going to have a little bit of a rise, and then it's going to go slowly upwards with worldwide adoption taking place here. So you have literally got 4 years to make an insane amount of money. And I tell you guys now, if you invest where we are now here, approximately, if you can get it right to take about $100,000 in the next 3 years, our calculations work out $100,000 should be about $7.5 million. Just by trading, not every single low and every single high. If you only catch 65% of those trades. And remember, our goal is only to trade the swing trade. We don't want to do day trading. Day trading just doesn't work. Not many people make money out of that. A very good friend of mine, a Philocone, who's on Twitter, I mean, this guy's a beast. He knows what he's doing. But not even me, I can't do it. And I'm not going to sit in front of my computer the whole time as well. So this gives you guys this is what we see in our algorithm. And this is potentially what is going to happen here. Now, we were correct with 2006 and 2017, where we literally called, and many of you guys were premium members at that time when we called that spike upwards. And I should actually bring up that report, but yeah. So is there any other questions there?
Yes, I have a question, Marius.
Sure, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed someone actually asked on the chat bar, could you talk a little bit more about how and why the elite will lose control? You know, it doesn't seem to have happened before in the history of the financial system. So what is it that's different this time?
Yeah, let's go back to, I need to go back. Let me just share that report again. Where was that report?
Yeah, we'd definitely like to hear your point of view on this question, because it is a bit baffling when you've got big wallets like that, that the deep state are buying up the Bitcoin like that, you know.
So can you see the report now? We've got the report here. It says 20% drop.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, now when we say that the elite is going to lose control, is simply because what we are finding is that the Swiss government is using billions of dollars to prop up the world stock markets, and it's not working. That's one factor. The second thing that we are finding is that those people who control the 17 wallets that we have been tracking, they came down from, I can't even remember where they are now, but every single time when Bitcoin wants to break out, they take 5 Bitcoins and they start selling them minute after minute after minute. Now, the erosion of their quantity of stack is so little now that they are running out of cryptos or Bitcoin, and they will need to buy Bitcoin just to get their stack back. The problem that they have, every single time when they drop Bitcoin to 6,000 or 5.8 or 5.9, it gets bought up so quick. And let me give you an example. I've got the Saudis. In the Middle East, I've got and I don't want to mention who this specific entity is, because if I mention this, you know, then I get nailed on Twitter again. Oh, you're lying. It's not the truth. Or let me tell you it is. And my wife is here with me, you know. I've got a connection to the King Abdullah himself. Now, the guy who I'm working with, I've got no reason not to trust him, because they are investing millions and we manage their funds for them. The instructions are that we will buy Bitcoin, Digibyte, and Litecoin. They send us the money and we would buy at any level. They don't care. We bought for them Bitcoin at 11,000, at 8,000, at 7,000, at 5,500. They don't care what the value is, because they know that Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million and more. So these guys, their instructions, and whenever Bitcoin dips, they want us to spend all the money and just buy. Now, we are one little company. We're just little. How many millions of other institutional investors are there, or people just investing in money? As soon as Bitcoin dips, we buy. We don't care, because we know the value is approximately 6,465. And the elite have been trying for 90 days to drop the price to $3,000, and they cannot do it, Bill. So that is one reason that we say that the elite is losing control. They can't drop Bitcoin any further, and they're getting frustrated. So those two reasons, in my opinion, is very strong reasons. Most of them are, I would say, subjective, about 60%, 40% objective information. because objective, I can see that America transfers money to the Swiss government. They're buying the FANG stocks or all other stocks, and it's not making an impact in the market. The second thing is we can see the wallets are decreasing in value, and the effect is not that big anymore. They can't drop it further. The only option they have is another Mt. Gox. But think about Mt. Gox. If Mt. Gox, if they dump a lot more Bitcoin, it gets bought up so quick that it literally flash crashes the market, and the market comes back up again. They can't get it to $3,000. I have spoken to a guy on a conference call who was really open and adamant about it. And he mentioned that they were hoping that their friends would drop Bitcoin to 4,500. And it didn't happen. The level now is 6,465. And I don't believe it's going to go lower. So now what we see is that the elite are going to lose control, and we will find out on the 14th of November when the world markets drop further and when Bitcoin goes sideways and upwards. When you see that divergence, you're going to know that this is true. Now, there's nobody in the entire mind or in the entire world that can literally answer this question: is the elite going to lose control of gold and silver? I'm only talking about what I see here is that we're going to have a divergence where the elite is going to lose control, the world stock markets are going to go down, and Bitcoin is going to go up. I can't talk for gold or silver because the manipulation is a little bit different in gold and silver, and we have to recognize that. I know a lot of people are calling for a huge economic crash and a huge worse than 2008. We don't see that really happening. We just see the world stock markets coming down and Bitcoin going up. Now, what happens when the market goes down? Look at this. We say it's going to go down 20%. If that goes down 20%, no financial institution will keep their money in the stock market and lose 20% on their portfolios. It doesn't happen like that. These guys cash out very, very quickly. And this is why you see that there has been $2 trillion been pulled out of the world stock markets just now recently in the last 6 months. $2 trillion. That money has to go and sit somewhere, and it's probably sitting in big accounts like HSBC, huge banks all over the world. They don't earn any money on that. A little bit of that money, and we've always said not all the money, but a little bit of that money is going to enter into cryptos, which is now entering into, like, for example, Zcash. I was on a call 2 weeks ago when these financial institutional investors were talking about getting into Zcash now, and they're buying like crazy because it's a coin that they can protect. It's an anonymity coin, you know. So to answer that question, really, how do we see the elite losing control? I've only got those two factors, and then our own personal investigation of what we hear on conference calls with the banksters. Remember, I'm still invited to a lot of these calls because many of these institutional investors are they still get our data. They still subscribe to our information. And it's very interesting actually that if I tell you who subscribes to this data, then I really have to wonder what is Jamie Dimon's agenda. Because some of their entities subscribe to our work. Okay, we give our data to them in a different format. But I mean, they are really deceitful, and they're catching the blue collar worker out, the middle class.
Always do the opposite of what they say, and you'll be fine.
Marius, I have a question. Hi. Sorry, I missed the beginning of the webinar. I joined late. Why are you calling for November 14th? What is so specific about this date?
As a matter of fact, there's nothing really specific about the date. All we did is we calculated, if you look at the chart now here, where the world stock markets went to that high point. And that high point is the point that we said that we're going to get to that point, that figure actually that we had. It wasn't really, we don't work in cycles. Like a lot of people claim they work in cycles. I mean, yes, Bitcoin has got patterns. There are certain cycles, like for example, the 30-day cycle and then 31 cycle. And we've made a video on YouTube where we put it out and show that every 30 days there's a change in the algorithm. So we don't really work on cycles, and patterns are more the thing that I like. if you look at this drop happened here. That is a pattern. Then it goes up, and then there's another pattern with a drop. This has to go up and down and then up again. And that length in our algorithm, we see that high point on the 14th, simply because of what happened here and what's going up there. And then we're going to see that drop. So there's nothing significant about the 14th.
Okay,
We could have moved that to 15. And earlier on, I said that it could be the 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. But when you see that break there, when the world stock markets start going down and Bitcoin goes the other way, that time, in that pattern time, is the time and date when you will see that Bitcoin will diverge from the world stock markets.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. There is a divergence building up here. And like you said, money has to come out of something and go into something else. But if we're talking about world stock markets, and this is a world economy, really, if U.S. markets drop substantially, for example, next week there is midterm elections, which could trigger some kind of a sell-off. Now that could transition into other markets, and it might happen next week, essentially, too.
That is correct. Yes, exactly. Now, see, we don't need to be smart people to work these things out. Exactly what you just said there now. Thank you for that input there. I can tell you with more certainty that, you see this date here, 29, between 27, 28, and 29, is that we are going to see some sort of an uptrend or spike upwards. Now, that can also be delayed with a day, 2, 3, or 4. But at this point, more or less, we are going to see an upwards trend. Now, again, let's have a look at the chart here. We expect the market to go down. We expect it then to break out here and then go sideways and then upwards. Now, just have a look at the pattern. The pattern here is pointing upwards. I could have drawn a line and say from here to there, just an arrow. The market is going to go up here, and here we've got 28. Around about that date in that block, that's where the market is going to move upwards. And this is actually the Ethereum chart.
Marius? What's your view on Litecoin the coming 3 to 5 days? Because Litecoin went up today a few percent.
Yeah, Litecoin went up a little bit. You will also find that Litecoin at some point is going to diverge from the pullback or trend of Bitcoin. Now, I've said it all the time from the beginning of the year that Litecoin is going to break out and then just become, go to $300-400 really quick. Now, let's quickly have a look at Litecoin. Now, we are buying Litecoin, for me personally and for institutional investors,